They came to meet their hero, the author who created a hero for a young generation, many of whom gathered at Puyallup's legendary Liberty Theater to rub elbows with the literary legend of their time. Who is she? You're about to meet her. This is a story about a story, a series of stories actually, that follow the adventures of a junior high super sleuth who in turn is followed by millions of young readers around the world. It's also a story about the math teacher turned best-selling author who created her. Our young detective is Sammy Keyes, and the creative force behind Sammy is California storyteller Wendelin Van Draanen, who made her young heroine less than perfect, on purpose.
She's sassy, and she's like hot-headed, and she makes some bad decisions. And I don't think you see that in a lot of other mystery series.
She's so typical. She's just a regular kid, but she's a middle school, junior high age kid who's not obsessed with boyfriends or clothes or that sort of thing. I mean, she has a regular existence, so those things do appear in her world, but she's so much more focused and just so much more with it. I mean, she's not a cool kid, but she's exactly the uncool kid you wanted to be or you wanted to know. She's always true to herself.
That's what makes her endearing. That's what makes me want to read more about her, because she is. She does feel real because we all make mistakes.
Sammy deals with more than just the mystery. This is not just Poirot on a train trying to figure out who done it. It's embroidered with so much more of navigating junior high, and everyone knows what it's like. Everyone remembers what it was like to go through that really difficult time of life.
With the final Sammy story now published, it's time to take a look back at the girl who didn't set out to be your garden variety gumshoe, any more than Wendelin Van Draanen expected to be a best-selling author.
Yeah, I'm the accidental writer.
Teaching high school math and science during the day, she spent early mornings and late nights writing and rewriting her Sammy series in this tiny house in Santa Maria, California.
Sammy came from the kids in my classroom, and just being around youth as a teacher and seeing just, God, when you're a kid, you think you're the only person who feels like an outcast or feels like is being, I don't know, picked on by other kids, or just, there's that whole dynamic at school that once you've left it and outgrown it, a lot of people look back on school and think it was wonderful. Other people look back and realize that it was like the most terrifying year of existence was 7th grade. And for me, that was like junior high school was a really hard time for me.
But in an amazing turn of fortune, those painful yet real experiences would become the basis for 18 wildly popular young mystery novels, though success wouldn't come right away.
When I look back, this is the place where we came up with the concept of having hope in the mail, because you hope for something better than this for your life, but it's the steps you take to make your dreams come true. I was writing these stories about Sammy, and nobody in New York wanted them. Like, I wrote the first one, and it was rejected by publishers. I wrote the second one, I sent it to all the people who had rejected the first one. I wrote the third one, it was rejected. So I was writing this series of books that nobody seemed to want. But every time I put a new manuscript in the mail, it felt like I was putting hope in the mail. 10 years of reject slips that I suffered getting out of this mailbox.
Eventually, hope paid off. A publisher said yes, and Sammy Keyes rocketed to success, ranking right up there with Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys. And better yet, Sammy attracted a sizable number of grown-ups, too.
Oh, I've read the entire series. As a 43-year-old, am I allowed to say that? But I did read them all, and they're so fun. I mean, Sammy is just, she's a great kid. She's a normal kid, perfectly normal, and she's got some extraordinary adventures and things, but basically she's just the kid you wanted to be, the kid you want to raise, just going through regular regular circumstances, but with some extraordinary twists.
Sammy's success and credibility are fueled by that realism. The center of her world is her grandmother's seniors-only apartment, where she lives secretly and illegally, while her mom chases an acting career in Hollywood.
You know what I really like? She's got this wonderful set of adults in her world, and the adults are they're not all portrayed as buffoons or so out of the mix that they don't know what's really going on. It really takes a village to raise this kid, and as you go through the books, you become more and more sympathetic with the adults, and they're very fully realized characters, and you sort of realize that that's largely how Sammy becomes who she is. I mean, she stays true to herself, but she's got these great influences, not in a traditional sense, which makes it so much more delicious. But she's never getting herself into trouble, really. Trouble just sort of finds her.
Apparently, Sammy's stumbles have struck a chord in many young readers who too are finding their way. It's why Sammy Keyes matters to them.
So I loved how she was spunky, she was different, and how she was good at heart, you know?
It's just like the friends that I would want to have. Anybody would want to have a friend like Sammy.
For some people it may be, Twilight, but for me, Sammy Keyes does that, and for my students.
And you read it and you're just like, you want to be as cool as her and you want to be like as fun and get to do as many adventures, but you're also like, she's an awesome person, and like morality and all of that kind of stuff. It's just like, it's all there.
Why does Sammy Keyes matter? I kind of started looking at it as that. Why do any of us matter? How would I approach it in terms of a person, and realize that I was thinking of Sammy Keyes as a real person. And Sammy Keyes matters because we matter.
And while Sammy seems real, so do the scenes in her stories. That's because they are. The series is set on the rocky central coast of California, in the fictional town of Santa Martina, patterned after the real town of Santa Maria, where Wendelin takes us on a tour of some of the sights made famous by Sammy.
All right, we ready to rock and roll.
Sammy's adventures take her to a lot of unexpected places, some where she probably shouldn't be, and some where she'd rather not be. Such as St. Mary's Church, where Sammy was sent to serve lunches to the homeless as detention for abusing the school PA system as she tried to clear her name. Sammy also cleverly catches a bad guy here.
So this is the location where Sammy and Marissa hid in the bushes while they watched the hotel thief coming down the street, and they had this idea of how they were going to trap him. But this is like what I envisioned Sammy and Marissa hanging out behind these bushes here at St. Mary's Church.
This is the real inspiration for the Heavenly Hotel, which really burned recently.
Sammy's mother has forbidden her to go inside the Heavenly Hotel because clearly it's a seedy place and you don't want a young person going inside it. But of course that is also invitation to be curious about it, and she winds up going inside the Heavenly Hotel. Over the course of the series, she becomes good friends with the manager there, whose name is Andre, who smokes a cigar.
And here's the police station, where Sammy wins over a certain skeptic.
That's where Officer Borsch hangs out. At first it's all kids are juvenile delinquents and Sammy's just nothing but trouble, and she causes all this mayhem in town, which she does, and she's living illegally with her grandmother, which is a big secret. So he knows she's hiding something, but he doesn't know what, he just knows she's trouble. And of course, over the course of the series, he comes to understand that she's not just trouble, she's also awesome.
And that's despite Sammy's, well, shall we say, less than lawful living situation.
This is the senior high-rise in the series is fashioned after. Most things in the series wound up kind of becoming exaggerated in a negative way or made better. And this is an example of something that's way better in real life than it is in the stories. Because in the stories, she has to sneak up and down the fire escape, and the place is just old with nothing new about it.
Nor was there anything new about that 400-square-foot house in a rough neighborhood where it all began. A place that not only inspired Wendelin to write the challenges faced by fictional Sammy, but sometimes had a very real effect on her, coming full circle one day when a homeless woman needed help drying her laundry.
I was writing Sammy Keyes and the Sisters of Mercy, And in that book, Sammy discovers this girl who is her age, who is homeless, who's living down at the riverbed. And Sammy wants to help her. So I'm in the middle of this story about Sammy wanting to help this girl. And now this woman who is about my age is knocking at my door, and my reaction is that I want to close the door, you know? But then, and this is where like my character became like more than just a character. She became someone who was informing my actions. Because in my head, I'm like, well, Sammy wouldn't close the door. Sammy would want to help her.
You can't make up the heart and soul of a character if you don't have that heart and soul yourself, which I think is what really comes through.
I wound up like with this whole new perspective on my life.
And by the time I got to about book 6 or 7, I realized she's been teaching me lessons. I'm a mom. I'm looking for the lessons. She touches on all of the themes, you know, bullying, homelessness, gangs, all of these sorts of things that are significant and applicable to the kids. I'm attuned to that. I'm looking for that. And somehow she manages to sneak it in such a light way. It's so delicately but poignantly addressed. You don't realize that you're being taught lessons until you've already learned them.
Like in Sammy Keyes and the Wild Things, it's about environmentalism. It's about the value of our endangered species and why we should make an effort to keep them on Earth. And this was about the condor. And at first, she was like, that is the ugliest bird, and it eats dead stuff. And she thinks that the Girl Scouts that she goes on this trip with are just fanatics. So it's the backdoor approach, where you approach it from, this is a stupid thing, and by the end of it, she understands the value of it.
Maybe that's why Sammy Keyes is loved by more than just middle schoolers. And if Sammy lures more fans to the written word, well, then all the better.
Reading really helps us think new thoughts. It exposes us to new ideas. It really helps us kind of live a fuller and more complete life.
I've actually been known to walk up, very appropriately of course, but walk up to kids in the library and say, hey, you look like you're about 10, 11. Have you ever read these books? Yeah, I'm shameless. Just shameless. I love them too.
Now that the final chapter of the final book has been written, the accidental author has the poignant last word.
As I watched her, I couldn't help but think of the way she's changed my life. The way she's made me laugh and grow and feel, the way she's helped me to see that a good heart and a strong head will take you anywhere you want to go. The way she's lifted me through dark times, and, probably most of all, the way she's been a friend. I feel at the end of it, I feel really content on one hand. I feel bittersweet on the other because Sammy's story has come to the end. It's like I've taken this child and I've prepared her for life. And then you send her off and you know she's going to do good things.
So where should we go on a night like this when we're all alone? Time it moves so slow. You know it's cool outside, I think we should go.